Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of Kim Talks Resilience. And today truly is going to be talking about that whole theme of resilience. Our guest today is Nanette Murphy. Nanette coaches women through the divorce journey. She is a certified divorce and health and life coach. She's also a published author and the founder of a private Facebook group, Women Divorced and Divorcing After Decades of Marriage. She helps women prepare that are going through the what next stage. It can be a struggle to get through the process, and she is there to guide and support you. Nanette has built a community to help encourage and support these women and give them a safe space to ask questions and express their fears and concerns. And I think this is really important because if we go to the family, or if we go to our personal friends, and if anything shifts or changes, then those people are all holding kind of those preconceived notions and don't allow us to grow through. Sometimes having that unbiased or that uninvolved, that person that's not anybody's friend, is definitely the way to go. Welcome to the show, Nanette.
Thank you, Kim. I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
You had said, or I understand that you personally have gone through this journey. And so what I'd like you to do is kind of just kickstart the show with a little bit of who is Nanette. By the way, I love that name. It rolls so beautifully. It's such a great name. But
Thank you.
If you could just share with us a little bit of who is Nanette.
Well, Nanette has many phases of her life. I'm a mother of three. Always will be a mother of three. It is my biggest joy in life. They are adults now, living their own lives, but I pride myself on knowing that they're my friends. We love to, we just love to be together any chance we get. That said, I was a wife for nearly 25 years the first time around. Gave my heart and soul into my family. And, we built businesses together, homes together, our families together. And ultimately, in 2010, my world shattered. And when I say it shattered, it just crumbled around me. And it took me a long time to recover. In that time, there's so much healing and there's so much growing and there's a lot of denial, fear, and loneliness. But I give myself the credit because I was dug deep and determined to not only survive it and get through it, but I wanted to become more than just, that woman who got divorced and has 3 kids, Now, I don't know how detailed you want me to get into it, but, I always said I would never remarry. It was furthest from my mind. I just celebrated my 4th wedding anniversary. And life is different, second time around as in marriage. But in that, I'm not only a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. But the most beautiful part for me is I found my next purpose in life. And I found a passion that I never even knew existed in me. And that is when I finally realized through my own just education, learning, trying to do new things, and that all began in 2020, that I needed to reach out to women who are going through what I went through. And I did not know that divorce coaches existed. I only knew that I needed a divorce. I hired a lawyer. You do the whole thing that society tells you to do. And now 3 years later, almost 4 years later, I have learned so much. And I want to give that knowledge to other women so that they don't have to take as long
Yeah,
to get through
absolutely.
this process. There's preparation. And I keep saying that divorce, it's an emotional journey, not just a legal battle. And there's so much more to it than just hiring an attorney. And I want to be that person. I want to, especially for the woman who you've been married 20, 30, 40 years sometimes. And suddenly you're single and you're on your own and it's terrifying. And you want to sit in denial as long as you can. But I want to help that woman get through that and become, honestly, I'm doing now what I never expected to do.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this journey, because this is a unique journey to yourself. However, this is not a unique journey that we see a lot of women in their 40s start to venture on. And it's really scary. It's really scary, especially when the world and I'm I have to kind of qualify this on almost every episode. I am not a man hater. I'm a mother of three with two young men as my sons, and I am married. But here's the facts. There's no money out there to help support women who bootstrap and build a business. So very little. Like I think it's less than 6% of business loans through traditional bank systems, JV or VC money, actually go to women. So when we look at that, we know that we got a 94% likelihood that we are, hand to mouth for the first 36 months while we're getting a business up and running. So we know why you started on this journey, is because you had to start on this journey for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through kind of what you do, and then we're going to peel back some of those aha moments that led to the pieces that make your services unique. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
walk me through what you do.
Well, I ideally want to reach a woman who is contemplating. A woman, on average, contemplates divorce for 2 years. That's on average. So truly, that is when I want her to reach out to me so that I can, number one, maybe you won't divorce, which, hallelujah, if you don't. But if you do, when you get to that point of you need to file, you need to do all this stuff, you've already done your legwork, you know your finances, you're preparing, because it's not just hiring a lawyer. I want you to hire your divorce coach first, because then you hire a financial advisor. You need to speak to a financial advisor, and there are certified divorce financial advisors. They're specifically certified in that area, because a lot of women stay in a marriage because they're fearful of the finances. They don't think they can afford it. They don't want to be, living below their means. And so helping them understand what the big picture looks like kind of eases their mind. They either know, okay, I'm going to stay, but I know if I ever had to be on my own, I would be okay. So many women over 40 don't even have their own bank account. They don't have their own checkbook. They don't have their own credit card. And I really want to help them prepare and get all those ducks in a row, so that if it comes the time that they have to file for divorce, that they've got that foundation ready, that they're not just going to talk to a lawyer and relying on them to take care of them. Because again, through this journey, you're emotional. You can't even think straight some days. And maybe divorce is inevitable, but you're just putting it off. And maybe in that time you can make sure you're prepared. And that's really what I want to help these women do, is I want them to know what their options are, and not just blindly go in and hire any lawyer that will just tell them what they should be doing. I want them to really be educated on what's available to them. And then, of course, is going through that process. Some women have to prepare and actually go to court, which is terrifying. And so these are all little stages of the sessions that we can work together, prepare. I can't take away the pain. I can't take away any of the steps, but I can definitely help them ease their fears a little bit and make them think of things or ask questions that they didn't even think of asking, because again, you're not always thinking straight. There's a huge fog that you're floating through for some time, a year or two sometimes. And then of course, after that, it's that what's next, that healing process, because that, the preparation and the getting through the divorce, that is tough enough. But then there's that what's next? What do I do with my life now? And we can navigate, we can, figure those things out together too, if they want.
And I never even thought about the finance, like that, I guess that whole fear around finances. So what other things do you hear being brought up? Like I know for myself, my whole thing would be sharing with the people in my circle, because I'm a fairly private person. Even nobody would ever guess that, because I share a lot. But certain things I guess maybe there's a shame factor or things. So walk us through. So the fear of finance would be one thing that they're coming, that is stopping them from activating one way or the other. Yeah. What are the other things that you see regularly as those stumbling blocks?
Just being alone. They've been with a partner, they have their circle of friends. And like you said, will I confide in my friends? Won't I confide in my friends? And I think that's where a coach also comes in to be helpful, because then they can be vulnerable. They can express things that they wouldn't necessarily talk to their friends and family about. And also, like you said earlier, friends and family, they might have a different perception, or so you don't want any of that. You want somebody who's just going to be very neutral. But definitely the fear of being alone, especially when you're 40, 45, 50, and you're suddenly looking to the future and there's no partner with you. And then, of course, there's the children. Everybody's always concerned about the children, as they should. But with my situation, I tried to hang on for the children until one day I realized that I needed to let go for the children, because I was looking at myself like, what kind of an example am I setting as a mother who is literally just being walked over? And I can't let them, I can't let them see that. I can't let them think that that's how a marriage works. And, ultimately there was, clearly a divorce, and everyone has to go through their healing. But I've heard the other day that someone said that, you have to set an example by pulling yourself together so that they can heal and pull themselves together. So yes, loneliness and the kids, finances, those are the top three that women are usually most concerned about.
When you were building this program, so let's say I have found you somehow, because we know that it's hard to find people, even though there's so much content out there. Yeah. I found you somehow. What does kind of the first step look like?
Well, I guess the first step for everyone is going to be different depending on what stage of divorce you're at. Because I like to say there's almost 4 stages, because there's the contemplating, then you're preparing. And then if you're already, like if you've hired me and you're already in the middle of it, it's probably going to be a lot of let's grab hold of your emotions. And then, the what's next part is trying to figure out, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So let's take it into pieces. The contemplating, you have to decide. I mean, ultimately, that's clearly their decision. They have to say, okay, I'm going to work on this. But for me and when I coach women, Self-care is first and foremost, no matter what stage you're starting at. I want to make sure that they're taking care of themselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever that looks like for them, because they have to learn how to, that emotional self-care part, they have to set boundaries. They have to make sure they're setting boundaries with both friends, family, and husband, soon to be ex. And sometimes that's a real process for people to focus on their self-worth, because, even I've had some clients that are already divorced and regretting it, and they don't know how to move on. And having them work on their self-worth and knowing that the decision is made and it's over with, but that doesn't define who you are. You are so much more than that. So I hope that answers your question, because I said,
absolutely.
each stage is different.
So you have the 4 stages. I really like how you broke that out. Where you're in the contemplation and then in the preparation. And I would say that third one is kind of to regulate. Like, how do you find your even keel? How do you find the new balance so you can move forward?
That's a daily practice.
Yeah.
Like every day you have to get up. And I say, find a little space in your home where that's your spot to be tranquil. Create this little cozy nest where you can just, whether it be prayer or meditation or just reflecting, just learning to be present. These are all techniques that some really have to learn, because when you're on that roller coaster of emotion, it's really hard to rein it in sometimes.
Absolutely. Next steps. That was the final 4th stage. And I find when it's big decisions, big things happening, it's really easy to go into paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the strategies that you share or you work with women to implement to move forward? Because sometimes how you get on if you're on that life raft and you got to stand real still. I just don't want to drown. And we get to this point where we've gone through all this turmoil and we've done all this work so we could get to that point. And now it's like, I'm going to hold my breath and not move. And hopefully everything will be okay. Because I think we tend to be in a state of conflict for so long that when there is no conflict, we don't know what to do. So we go into paralysis.
Right.
Am I just guessing at this? But so walk me through how you get moving on next step.
So my biggest recommendation, and this is something I did, I was a soon-to-be empty nester, had 1 child living with me. I'm moving through my life. I began volunteering. I began to give back to my community. And that was a pivotal moment for me. I've always been charitable. We used to have parties where we raised money and gave to charity, all of that. But I took this particular charity that I was a part of, and I have to say, I'm coming up on the 10th anniversary of this. I started working and volunteering, and they have this daycare center, and I started going once, twice a week and helping them with the children of this women and children's shelter. And I cannot stress enough how important that was, like, for my healing. And I can only imagine why it wouldn't do it for everyone's, because when you give back and you see, all right, I'm in a terrible situation. This is really, really lousy. When you see what some other person has to live with, for this little child who's put in the situation, no fault of their own, it gives you a different perspective on life. It gives you a different, it just gives you a different outlook. And I do want to share this one little snippet, and I like to share this because it's really meaningful. This one particular morning, I was going into the daycare center, and I had It had been a terrible night before. I wasn't feeling myself. I thought I shouldn't go in today, but they need me. I'm an extra set of hands for these babies, changing diapers, feeding them. So I went in and I ended up in the little quiet room, rocking a baby to sleep, and tears are pouring down my face. And I'm trying to hold back my gasps of crying. And I thought, I have to leave here. This is not where I should be. This isn't right. This isn't appropriate. And then all of a sudden I felt almost like, almost like somebody holding me down saying, this is exactly where you should be. You are right where you're supposed to be. And in that moment, I realized that those little children gave more to me than I was giving to them by hugging them, changing diapers and all of that. So that is like my number one thing that I want to recommend is give back. Go work at a local soup kitchen. I mean, there's all kinds of charities that you can be involved in. But I just feel like giving back is really a huge part of my healing. And once you start healing, really good things start to happen in your life. And healing is an active process.
And most women are nurturers by nature.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we have to, it's like wearing lipstick. Sometimes we have to put, up from the external to bring it all the way through to the internal.
Absolutely. Actually, you say that I've told women, like, go out and buy yourself a bright new blouse or a new color lipstick. Do something that just lifts your spirits up. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Maybe it's just going for a walk that day. Breathe in the fresh air. Healing, again, it's an active process, and it sometimes just takes simple steps.
Yeah.
Because it's not a marathon to get through this. You really have to, you can't skip any steps.
You got to spend time in it in order to, if we don't understand the things that brought us to where we are, we can't learn from them, and we can't do better or progress. You know what I'm saying, right? They
Absolutely,
say, what is that? You keep doing the same thing over and over, right? You keep getting the same results, right?
Yeah. It's all gonna, it won't change.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, and I don't know if you're open to sharing, but you said in 2010, your world shattered. And I really like to learn a little bit about that story of resilience, that seed that helped you put one foot in front of the other, helped you breathe. Yeah. And are you open to sharing a little bit of that with us? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. So, my husband was unfaithful with a friend. So I had a double-edged sword. And I always said that I would tolerate anything in a marriage but infidelity. And then it was staring me in the face. And then, ironically, I'm not sure what the word to use, I stayed. I stayed for 2 years. But in that 2 years, there was such turmoil and so much heartache. And I realized later that I really didn't tolerate it. I may have been there trying to make it work, but ultimately in my mind, I knew that it wasn't going to work out. I just had to process the information. And unfortunately, it took about 2 years to process it. Because when, I had been a young girl, I was 18 years old when I met my first husband. You're with someone I was with him for over 30 years. It takes a while to shift gears and to find yourself. And my analogy is that my heart had been ripped into 1,000 little pieces. And then it's like one day the wind blew and the pieces were all gone. But then I said, but there was one small piece left. And I just knew I had to nurture it and help it grow. And let me tell you, it was a process. It was not overnight. I hear other people say it's like 3 to 5 years before you really feel like yourself again. And actually, one of my clients said, when did you feel yourself again. I'm like, I've never really felt like that woman before. I'm a new, improved, amazing version of myself now. So, so that's like in 2010, it was the devastation. Someone said once they felt paralyzed. I'm like, yeah, that's a really good word for it too. You feel like the world is happening around you, but you're really not a part of it. It's the strangest thing to describe. But I think the resilience came in when I realized, number one, I have 3 kids that I want to keep being their mom, and I want to keep, being a good person and a good sister, wife, friend, even as a divorcing wife, I mean, I want to be a good person. So you really have to do some soul searching in order to realize you have to heal. But there's no magic fairy dust that's going to fall
There's
on
no
you.
magic fairy
There
dust.
is no magic fairy dust.
I so agree with you.
I look for it. There's none out there.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I've looked
Yeah.
for magic beans and magic fairy dust. I've looked for it all, for anything and everything. Unfortunately, nothing truly worthwhile comes easy or free.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. There's a price.
Even the love of our children does not come easy or free, because
True that.
those kids are expensive. Oh,
They're
got the stretch marks to prove it.
They're expensive, and they tear at your heartstrings all the time.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? How old are your kids?
31, 29, and 25.
Okay, so mine's 33, 25, and 22.
Okay.
And I will look at pictures when my babies were babies, and my heart hurts. Do you ever go through that?
I just found some pictures of my youngest daughter today. I just was going through a drawer, and an array of ages, and I was just like, oh, and I sent them to her. I'm like, I found beautiful pictures I found. Of course it does. You just never, you always see them as your babies.
I think the one thing we can take away from that I think advice-wise for everybody who's listening is that today is the last day of today. You have to be constantly moving. So live each day to the fullest. And if you feel that you're stuck, you feel that you're just kind of barely floating, reach out and find somebody like Nanette. Join a Facebook group, like Nanette's. Let's, not saying everybody needs to get divorced, but you need to know who you are, what you're doing, and why you're there.
Right. And that's why I am a divorce and life transition coach, because aren't we always transitioning? We always seem to go through some sort of transition, whether it be our kids, becoming empty nesters. And, even sometimes, divorce is often looked upon as you're grieving. It's like there's been a death of the marriage. It's a grieving process. There's all kinds of transitions in life. And I've learned that you don't have to go on these journeys alone. It's much easier when you have someone to confide in.
I completely agree, and confide in somebody in a neutral territory.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really important, because there's nothing worse than getting your overzealous, sibling involved in your case.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's why I kept my my secret of infidelity, of my husband's infidelity, for 2 years, because I needed to process it.
Yeah.
And then they would pass judgment on them. And how would we, if we would have ever been able to fix it, then there'd be just that cloud,
However, at the end of the day, he is still the kid's father.
Absolutely.
You don't need anybody, crazy Uncle Larry trash talking at Thanksgiving.
It's true.
I totally respect that. Now, I'd like to jump into books. I always like to find out about books. Now, you are a published author, Shattered Dreams and New Beginnings.
Yes.
I see.
Here, I just happen to have it sitting here.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. Yes. You've also got I see another small book or card here, A Clear Path to Divorce.
Yes.
What is that?
I have just published that this year, and that is giving you the outline, giving a woman the outline of to read. As to there are I can't remember now. It's been a while since I don't have a copy of it with me. I live in two different locations, but it's your hires, like who you need to hire, in what order and why, budgeting, expensing, or expenses, your finances. It's all
That's
of these things that
brilliant.
you need to think about. There's a chapter on self-care. Again, I'm a huge advocate of self-care. I'm a health coach, as far as in my realm is more nurturing yourself. It's not necessarily about your diet or, going to the gym. It's truly taking care of yourself, going for a walk, getting a bike ride in, just kind of having some routine of healthcare, and then of your kids as well. And I've actually turned that into a digital program, because not everybody likes to read. Not
Yeah.
everybody wants to follow the reading, but it's also something that can go hand in hand this content is 2.5 hours of basically
Yeah.
coaching and listening. So, but that's what a clear path to divorce is. It's just the steps you need to take in order to
Oh,
get through
that's
it. Yeah.
fabulous. And with Shattered Dreams and New Beginnings, can you tell us what the reader can expect from this book?
The reader can expect, I wrote it. It's my story. It is my journey through, from a young girl and hopes and dreams. But I wrote it for inspiration. It talks about it's my journey, but it's also how I got to where I am here today and why. So I wrote it to inspire others, to give them hope and encouragement that my world shattered, but I rebuilt it. And I want to help others do the same.
If somebody wanted to reach out, can you again share the name of your Facebook group? And is it a private or open Facebook group?
Well, there's 3 ways to reach me. Probably the best is my website, Live Life Now with Purpose, because there is where you can join my Facebook group. I have a business Facebook page, which is Divorce Coaching with Nanette. And then the private group, where it's really only for women. I really want to help. I want to make sure that the women in the group know that it's secure, and that is women divorced and divorcing after decades of marriage. And that it can all be found on my website, along with, I always encourage, book a free consultation call with me, 30, 45 minutes. When they book a call, I always send them a video that, introduces myself, so that they know, so that when we're on the call, it's just about them and what they need to talk about.
Excellent. Any other materials or anything that if somebody's just, in the very, very beginning thinking space, is there anything else on your website? Live Your Life with Purpose. Live Life Now. Live Life Now with Purpose.com.
Yes. Actually, I was just on my site today doing some special summer offers. I have a guide on what's next after divorce. I have a guide on being prepared to divorce. It's just a simple little outline, not as in depth as A Clearer Path to Divorce. I actually also created a journal, because when I was, separated, anticipating divorce, everybody's always telling you to journal. And I always found those blank pages daunting. So I created a journal that prompts them, their morning emotions, their afternoon thoughts, or evening reflections. It gives them a space where they go, okay, I'm going to make a list of lawyers that I need to hire, or advisors that I need to, to contact. So it's kind of like a little workbook, very simple, but just so that the journal isn't empty pages. There's some inspirational quotes in there, just to get them thinking. And then, I think I was also part of 2 multi-author books, which again is more inspirational stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've been published 3 times, and you're a 3 times published author.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. That's all, because none of that's easy.
No.
That's easy. It's all putting yourself out there, and once it's out there, it's out there.
Once
There's
it's
no
there,
taking
it's
it
there.
back.
Absolutely. There's no taking it back. But that's why when anybody says, well, can I ask you a question? I ask away. I mean, I wrote a book that's pretty much, pretty much
it's all
out
there. It's all
I mean,
there.
not the dirty details. I wrote it very respectfully. I wasn't out to get anyone. I wasn't out to be vindictive. It was just outlining what happened and talking about the emotions and the feelings that you have, that
because there's two
sometimes hard
sides
put
to
it.
every story.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if you don't, when you don't harbor anger, it leaves a space inside for new good things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the one thing I just thought of when I was writing, somebody said, oh, was it hard to write it? And I'm like, there were moments where you get emotional, but what I got from it the most was I thought to myself, look how far I've come. And that was really a great feeling. So again, it's for inspiration, to inspire others. We have to share our stories so that other people know that they're not alone.
That is exactly why we're here today.
Absolutely.
Letting people know they're not alone. Yeah. So I'd love for you to close out the show today with a quote that inspires you. Any quote will work. We just like to share.
Yes. So I know we talked about what I had written, but I've come across another quote since then, which really moved me. And it's, life really does begin at 40. Until then, you're just doing research. And it was like Carl something. I wish I could remember who he was. I read that just in the last few months, and my light bulbs went on. I'm like, oh my God, yes, you're just doing research. And I tell my kids that all the time now.
That is a great quote.
Isn't it, though?
It is. Nanette, I thank you so much for putting in the work and sharing the message that you are, and helping people, because that's really what we're here to do.
Absolutely.
And in the infamous words of Mr. Fred Rogers, after every ending, there's always a beginning. So if you're looking for a beginning, you have to close the door on one so you can open the door on next. And until next time, all I can say is thank you so much for your time here at Kim Talks Resilience. Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching, and you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.